world's leading organization in advancing business incubation and entrepreneurship, focusing on early-stage companies. Welcome, and you have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, and Ms. Fallon, Representative Fallon, for and the committee members to give us a chance to speak about business incubation. As you've introduced, I'm president of NBIA. National Business Incubation Association is perhaps the leading business incubation association in the world, with 1,900 members in 65 countries. We have 1,400 members in the United States alone. I also represent entrepreneurs. Myself, I've started 10 companies in different countries, and I think I have something to say about entrepreneurship and their interest in incubators. Thank you for the opportunity. Indeed, I think business incubation does have an important role to play in creating jobs, and I'm delighted that you're thinking about this. Entrepreneurs are the secret to creating jobs, as we'll talk more about soon. But as you know, starting a business is not easy, and there are many obstacles they face in their process of starting companies. That's where incubators come in to play a role. You could think of an incubator as a university of a kind, where incubator manager is very careful in selecting the right companies to come in and gain access to comprehensive services that help improve the sustainability of these firms. They usually stay in for about a 2-3 year period of time, depending on the industry they operate in. They are expected to graduate, having internalized the assistance over time too. They are going to graduate, and there's strong indications that they stay in their industry, they stay in their communities for time afterwards. That's important consideration. The institution is 50 years old here in the States. We developed it out of upstate New York. The Batavia Industrial Center is still in business today. The institution is growing as local residents recognize that it's easier to build businesses locally than to chase smokestacks from elsewhere. So that's part of the reason why it's grown to now have more than 1,100 members in the United States. Indeed, business incubators do create jobs. As you've summarized, we've created, in a recent study, we've seen that in 2005, 27,000 incubators, or 27,000 businesses were assisted, creating 110,000 jobs. And it's worth repeating, $17 billion worth of income was produced. In a study that was conducted by the EDA, we see that relative to other infrastructure projects that were supported, they created 20 times more jobs than infrastructure projects like sewer and water projects. Now there are 7,000 incubators around the world. Unfortunately, the United States is beginning to trail behind the growth in incubation overseas, where over the last 30 years alone, we've seen 16% growth on a year-on-year basis of incubators in the States. We see that overseas it's closer to 25%. Also, we see that today the UK and Germany have between 40 and 45% more incubators per capita than we do in the States, despite our having an early lead in this. One of the largest sources of federal funding for business incubators is the EDA. Unfortunately, EDA allocates funding to business incubation through its public works program. In other words, they finance the bricks and mortar aspect of a business incubators, which is tantamount to building a university without covering the professors and the programs that make an education experience rich. But the story's not over yet. I'd like to make some policy recommendations that I think are important here. I'd like to recommend that we consider widening the scope of funding support that's offered to business incubators. I think that we need to include the support for their operations, so I would implore you to think about that. Also, I suggest that we also not consider business incubation as a tool for serving only distressed areas. In today's economic crisis, this is a time we need to consider a much larger set of sectors and locations than before. You're going to hear today that business incubators that follow best practices outperform those that do not. So we're hoping to help develop legislation that encourages firms to use best practices. Indeed, we expect responsibilities associated with any additional funding that's made available to business incubators. Also, we find that incubators that network and collaborate together are in a better position to outperform. They share best practice and they understand each other's businesses more effectively. So we would like to see more support allocated to the development of new state associations where local award programs can be developed. We'd also like to see that we standardize outcome measures and develop better ways to monitor return on investment for these types of programs. Increase the frequency of data collection and synthesize and act upon the lessons we learn from the process. And NBI is prepared to help. We can convene a panel, an advisory panel comprised of some of the leading experts in the United States advising on better ways to disseminate best practices, identify better proposals, better proposal funding models, and evaluation criteria that improves federal funding allocations. We can play a continued and larger role in business incubation education, and we can, most important perhaps, mobilize our members to respond and act to recommendations and queries that are required to make more important legislation. In summary, there's a couple of points I'd like to highlight. High-growth startups are instrumental in creating jobs, and business incubators play a role in making and leveraging the investments these entrepreneurs make. We have to recognize these entrepreneurs often have these barriers. They may be experts in a particular product or service area, but in the commercialization of this is where they face challenges. And the roles that these incubators play, both on the technical assistance side and the network assistance side, are crucial for commercialization.
Mr. Monkman, time is expired.
Thank you.
But you will have an opportunity to expand during the question and answer period.
Thank you.